What's up there, Travel Chronicles? This is the Longevity Chronicles, chapter 1. So, I've been doing some what we'll call longevity stuff since about March. And how I got on this track was Brian Johnson. I seen a Brian Johnson video, BRY, and he's a guy, same age, I think he's 47, I'm 46, but just in incredible shape. And what he had done, and the tagline I think was, guy who spent $2 million a year on his body. So I don't have that much to spend per year, but what he had done was, he's the guy who invented Venmo, Braintree, something like that. He was in that group, and when they sold it, he got $800 million. So he was doing all right. And then he came back and he tried to do another invention that was more like based on like telekinetic, something that just tapped right into your brain waves. And he also got into fitness, right? Because he had enough money now. So this was his goal, like the whole time, was to like invent something, get some money, and then not really retire, but focus on something that he thought could help humanity. At least that's how he presents it, which is, it's a great way. I mean, yeah, all right, I'm in great shape, by the way, but also, let me help you, world. So it's been about 3 months, and I didn't like go in gung-ho, right? Like I dipped my toes in the water a little bit. And his big thing, like, I don't want to say his big thing, right? Because it is multiple things that he does, right? I mean, $2 million, that's a lot of stuff. So he's got his whole diet planned out. He takes a ton of supplements, but there is some rudimentary type things that he does. So like sleep, that's one, right? He makes sure that he gets, I don't want to say 8 hours of sleep, but like the right amount of sleep per night. So he has a measurable device, and he goes in and he measures his sleep, or by some metric is able to calculate his sleep, or he give him 100 sleep score, right? A Whoop or some type of device that's able to give him a sleep score. Garmin doesn't do it on the Forerunner 245 that I have. I think they have some other devices that are capable of calculating a sleep score, but it's basically, how much deep sleep did you get, how much REM sleep did you get, how long were you asleep, because certain sleep is more restful, more fulfilling, and the deep sleep is a big hitter in that. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. One thing that I started doing based on what he was doing was extra virgin olive oil. And I was listening to another podcast, Glad and Longevity. So he has this Longevity Olympics thing that's part of his page or thing that he keeps up. His is the Brian Johnson Blueprint page. So if you look up Brian Johnson Blueprint, it's got everything on there. And he measures himself, his heart rate, liver age, DEXA scans, pretty much anything you could want to know about something. Anything that's possible to be measured, he measures it. And he puts it all out there for anybody to come look at the data. Like, did this help me? Did this not help me? Here's every amount, every supplement I'm taking, when I'm taking it. And it's incredible knowledge, though, that he's putting out there for free. There's no paywall here. There's nothing. It's just, here's my information. I spent all this money on it. Here's what it is. And like his big thing is, he did a lot of research, him and his group, of what group of people lives the longest, what are they doing, what did they do. So extra virgin olive oil was one thing that he latched onto pretty early on. Like the people in Italy, they're drinking it, and it has a lot of like phenolic compounds in it that actually do a lot of things biologically to help you. So it's hard to find, like, you can just go and buy cheap extra virgin olive oil, but it really does depend on the quality. So he has his own. Now I don't think he's making a ton of money on it. I mean, it's a $60 thing, but for 2 bottles. But he's also like bringing the stuff over, certifying it, making sure that everything meets this very purposeful standard that he's set. So I mean, it's like theoretically the best extra virgin olive oil you can buy. And he put snake oil on him because he's kind of funny that way. Like he's an odd guy because he's real genuine, right? Like it's odd to see somebody who's so genuine that just, hey, I'm doing well. Like I want to see you do well. And it's such an odd take. And he was a Mormon for a really long time. So I think he just has an innate, good characteristic about him where he's not somebody that's into, tearing other people down or really making fun of people who are going all in. Like people make fun of him and he just, he kind of laughs it off, brushes it off. And it's like, you can make fun of me because, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right is basically how he's doing. But, where was I? The extra virgin olive oil? Oh yeah, he put snake oil on it because that's kind of like how he makes digs at people. A little bit, the people that are coming after him. Like, yeah, maybe I am a snake oil salesman with this extra virgin olive oil. It's like, you don't have to buy it. It's like, this is just what I do. And so I started taking it, and on the Gladden Longevity podcast, who I saw on Brian Johnson's page for the Longevity Olympics, which is attached to his blueprint page. Like you can go down to it, and people they've come up with a way to measure their relative aging process. So if somebody's aging 0.64, every 19 months they're turning a year older. So they get an extra 7 months of life by the way that they're living. So you live 12 months, living a normal life, so to speak, and then he gets an extra 7 months based on how he's living. And there's a certain principle out there, the Hayflick constant. He was a scientist in the 50s, 60s, somewhere around there, that had human tissue that they were doing samples with, and he noticed after a certain time period that the tissue would die. And it didn't matter like how many nutrients it gave it, what conditions it was in. It just, after a certain period, it would die. And they weren't really sure of what it was going on and what was causing it, but it was just like, all right, there's a certain lifespan, about 50 to 70 cell divisions, it's gone. Like there's nothing you can do to keep it alive. And then in the 80s, 90s, somebody came back in and did some piggyback research on what he did and found out that it was telomeres that was connected to the end of the chromosomes. It's almost like the plastic piece of a shoelace, right? It's on the end of the chromosome. And when that telomere gets shorter and shorter and shorter, eventually the cell says, all right, I'm not going to divide anymore because the information that's getting passed on from, in this division may not be any good, and I'm not doing it. And so the cell then becomes senescent. So it's essentially like a zombie cell that's kind of wondering, it's not going to divide anymore. It's not doing anything else, but it can also become kind of destructive in the body. So there's certain ways to clean that stuff out. But anyway, the Hayflick constant, or limit, is 120 years. And that's also biblical. Like if you look it up, like God says, after the flood, he sets the timeline for people at like 120 years, which is kind of ironic because that book was written, a pretty long time ago. And then it took us till the 50s to kind of really lay it out. It's like, okay, you are limited. And then somebody, another 30 years later figures out why. So, it's taken a long time to get to that point, but we kind of understand it now. Now, telomeres are these things that may sound, kind of morbid, I guess, that, eventually they're going to shrink and you're dead. That's when you're done so. But there are ways to lengthen it. So there's a hormone called telomerase. If you can turn it on, the telomeres will stay longer. There's even a chance that you can regrow them, add these pairs onto the end of the chromosome. And there's certain things out there that you might be able to take, like, astrologus is like the root, the Chinese root that has this. That's the stuff that that can turn telomerase on. Now, it doesn't necessarily, make a huge impact if you just start taking it, but there's some other things. TAM 818 was one, but it's super expensive. And then there was like a TM 65 or something else 65. But those are like, I don't want to say pharmacological, but they're chemically made products based on that astrologus. So astrologus is like the cheapest thing you can get on the ground floor. It may turn telomerase on, and I'm not a doctor by any means, so don't take anything that I'm saying as medical advice. But like that's like the key to longevity. If you're looking at it like, here's something you can take that may help you live longer. Right now, extra virgin olive oil doesn't have it, but on the Glad and Longevity podcast, one of the guys who was doing the podcast with him, Mark Young, he talked about taking V8, and he would put apple cider vinegar in it, because extra virgin olive oil by itself is not great, like in my opinion. Like, and you can put it on stuff, but if you put it in V8, pour a little apple cider vinegar in there, which you're also supposed to take, just for general health. Mix it up a little bit. It's not bad. So that was like the first thing that I started doing. Then I started taking some, really digging into supplements. Dina was actually taking some, so I was kind of looking what she's taking. She's taking zinc, which I wasn't taking before. I was just taking a multivitamin. So I started taking that. Started taking some D3. Looked up some other things that they were taking. I started taking turmeric, and that's for like blood pressure, lower blood pressure. Ashwagandha, which is like a stress reducer, but it does have an effect where it can also kind of kill your ability to care if you take it for too long. So you got to take a break. You got to like cycle it a little bit. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. I basically take a bottle and then I'll take a week off. So I'm on my week off period right now. That's why I'm doing this, because I care right now. If I was in my don't care phase, I wouldn't do it. I don't know. Does it have an effect or not? I think once you know that, it kind of has a psychological effect, but it's just kind of what it does. So started taking those, and then I added at another point, like I would do one thing for about a month and then add something. So I started adding creatine for workouts, which is just like, this is a base thing that Brian Johnson would take. I think he took 2 milligrams a day, something. So I'm taking between 2 and 5. Like a scoop is 5, but 2. There's a certain ratio that you can take per pound or per kg. But a little bit every day is a good thing. And as you get older, certain things get harder and harder to do. There are certain things in the body that dies off. And one of the things that dies off is, I don't want to say dies off, but gets weaker and slower and stuff like that. So yeah, the immune system, but the NAD cycle, which supplies like a base energy level, helps produce ATP in the body. That NAD cycle will get very low, and there's you can take niacin, and I take it in the form of nicotinic acid, but there's NMN and NR, nicotinamide riboside is NR, and I can't remember what NMN is, but it's a variation on that. But the base molecule is niacin, which is in nicotinic acid, nicotinamide, and there's another version of it too that you can take. But if you take the nicotinic acid, it produces a flushing response, which is like a vascular dilator. So your skin like can turn kind of red if you take too much at one time. But I think it's a good thing, because it's an effect that you can see in my mind. So you know it's working, you know it's there. So I started taking that. I started taking the creatine and beta-alanine before workouts and after workouts. 3,200 grams is like the dosage to take, and it and creatine is something where you can load, where you can take like a higher concentration to start with, and then a maintenance level. But I only take the beta-alanine if I'm doing something physical that day. I won't take it if I'm not doing something. And it helps with endurance muscle, where creatine is more of like a short burst type thing. And actually, one thing I was reading, it was like, it's like seconds worth of muscle work, where creatine, the loading and having it available makes a significant effect. But it's something to have, base-wise. And I feel like in my workouts and stuff, in my runs, that it's having an effect. And I don't know if it's just a cumulative effect of everything, but I also started taking CoQ10 or CoQ10, which is an ATP producer or helper. So I started doing that as well. So that's kind of my stack right now. I think that's everything that I'm taking. I also take casein protein and muscle milk normally, but looking at the future, one of the things that Dr. Gladden says, that he does is that, when you're taking protein and I think testosterone, he takes testosterone and a bunch of other stuff, you have this mTOR cycle where you're kind of building muscle and different things. And then you want to go into this AMPK cycle where you're getting all these senescent cells and these, kind of broke down cells out of the body. You're breaking everything down. And there's a couple things that'll do that: physitine, and spermidine, and there's a dihydroberberine combination there somehow, some way that I want to work out if I go in that AMPK cycle. I don't really do it yet, but if a fast throws you into it, then you can kind of help it out with that stuff. So that's where I'm at right now. This is part 1. I got some long trips this week, so I may do a part 2 or something then. All right, well, be careful, be COVID free. Later.